Okay. Hi, good evening. Welcome. My name is Janet McLaughlin, and I am the Deputy Director of the Child Development Division within the Department of Children and Families. We're really glad to be with you tonight to talk about Act 76. This is a major piece of legislation impacting early childhood and after-school programs and the families that they serve and the educators that work within them. And so it's really important for us to be able to have a shared understanding of the law and, and also identify what existing questions there still are. Act 76 is a really big bill. We have, there's 40 pages of text in it related to the childcare pieces of the bill. And it includes investments in and policy changes for affecting early childhood and after school programs. It does include changes that roll out over time, and it also sets up committees, does reports. So there's a lot of different elements to it. So our goal for tonight is to help lay out, what you can expect when, and then also set it up so that you know where to go for help and additional questions, and to be able to find the resources that you need. But we want to make sure you don't worry. We are going to be providing these resources for you online. You don't necessarily need to be like feverishly taking notes. We're going to make sure you get all of this. We do have an Act 76 webpage on our CDD website. It's going to include links to key documents, including things like the text of the Act itself. This presentation, we've created a pretty detailed summary and status chart that sort of goes through each element of the bill and then offers sort of from CDD's perspective, like what is the status? Is this implemented? Is this planning? And so that you can know, again, what to expect from us and then what resources you need to be able to act on it if you need to. And then we will put together frequently asked questions based on what we're hearing from all of you. We have a great team at CDD in general and presenting tonight. So we have, so I'm Janet, and then we also have Emily Hazard, Dawn Rouse, Donna LaPiccolo, and Chris Case presenting, and then Carolyn Long, who's our Director of Operations, is with us as well to help answer questions too. And in terms of the agenda, it's fairly simple. The overview will go over the goals of the law, and then we will break down the key components. And then we hope to have about 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A at the end of the session. So the first section of Act 76 lays out the legislative intent. This is section 1 in the bill. And the law has, about a page and a half, 22 lines of text that lay out the legislature's intent. We've pulled some of the key elements onto this slide around increasing access to and quality of childcare in after-school, early childhood, and summer program settings. One of the goals is to provide financial stability to childcare programs, to stabilize the workforce, to better support family childcare homes, and to increase equitable access to and quality of universal pre-kindergarten offerings for 4-year-olds. And we know that that final one is something often people have a lot of questions about, and we will get to that at the end of the presentation. And there's additional elements that the legislature did call out that, again, if you read the text of the bill, you can make sure you have that understanding there. This law does align with our priorities here at the Child Development Division. The state of Vermont really does have a deep commitment to the well-being of children and families and communities here. And there's a deep understanding sort of at all levels of state government that early childhood and after-school programs are really essential, and that the programs that make them run are really important to our communities. So our goals that we see reflected in this law are around making sure that each and every family can access and afford childcare, that the programs and services offered are high quality and developmentally appropriate, that the people doing this work are getting the support that you all need, and that we use research and data to make decisions. And all of those are reflected in the various elements of the bill. For this presentation, we've organized the changes into categories that don't necessarily follow the exact outline and sections of the bill. It's kind of complicated. It's in really, and it's long, and it's in, reflects sort of the way the legislation has to be written with related to effective dates, and it repeats itself. So we have broken it down into these 5 categories. And so our team will be reviewing these with you tonight. So there's changes related to the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. There are changes that related to child care licensing, to accountability and administration. There's some UPK related elements to it that I'll be talking about later, and I'll also run through some of the reports and presentations that are required. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily Hazard to talk about the Child Care Financial Assistance Program, as well as Dawn Rouse.
Janet. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Hazard. I'm the Child Care Benefits Administrator for the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. As Janet mentioned, some pretty big changes to the Child Care Financial Assistance Program from Act 76. So in 2023, we've already accomplished a couple of the items. Effective July 2nd, the CCFAP cap rates are higher. They've moved to a simplified and higher rate schedule that better reflects the cost of providing quality child care. Also effective July 2nd, 2023, the CCFAP rates are no longer tied to a program STARS rating. The elimination of STARS in CCFAP payment levels is intended to ensure families a similar benefit from CCFAP no matter which program their child attends, while supporting all programs and achieving high quality standards. And then next year in 2024, there will be more changes to the state reimbursements to child care programs. So effective January 1st, 2024, CCFAP will no longer pay the lesser of the two between the provider's rate and the CCFAP capped rate. There will only be a CCFAP state rate. That CCFAP state rate is going to be 35% more than the current CCFAP capped rates. And I think we're working on getting that information, what those specific figures will look like out. But if you're curious, just the calculation, it's 35% more than the current capped rates. And then one additional change to the state reimbursements in 2024 for family child care programs, an increase to CCFAP state rates by 50% of the difference between family child care and center-based program state rates. So this would be an additional increase in reimbursements to family child care programs.
And Emily, I'm just going to jump in because I noticed an error on the slides that says 1/1/24, and that's actually 7/1/24. So I apologize for people, but we do have the correct information actually on the next slide. So
this is our capped rate chart that has been expanded a little bit so that you'll have a little better idea of what the reimbursement rates will look like. So effective July 2nd, the current rates are in this first column. And then January 1st, 2024 is the 35% increase. And then July 1st, 2024, you can see there will be no changes to licensed center reimbursements, but for registered homes, there will be another increase in July of 2024. Additional changes for programs. Programs can no longer accept application and waitlist fees for children who are eligible for CCFAP. And if application or waitlist fees have been collected, they must reimburse on those fees for children who are later found to be eligible at the time that the fees were collected. So that is effective July 1st, 2023, and this requirement will be incorporated into the CCFAP provider agreements in the future. Another upcoming change, CCFAP to be paid on enrollment versus attendance-based. So that will be effective in January 2024. CDD is working to define what an enrollment-based CCFAP program will look like, and we're working with the Office of Racial Equity beginning later this summer. Pretty big changes for families as well. Expansion of eligibility for families. In 2024, the income eligibility will increase to 400% of the federal poverty level. Currently, eligibility is capped at 350%. So a small increase to the number of families who could potentially be eligible for CCFAP in April of 24. The $0 weekly family share extends to 175% FPL also in April of 24. The $0 weekly family share currently applies to families who are at 150% FPL or lower. Extension of CCFAP benefits to children who were previously excluded due to citizenship status. That's anticipated for July of 24. And then income eligibility increases to 575% FPL in October of 24. And the local community child care support agencies who administer the child care financial assistance program in their local regions, the 12 local regions, they also received an additional $2 million for their operating costs to help fund the eligibility specialists and administer the program. Additional changes for families. CDD is looking at state CCFAP policies related to self-employment and other potential specialized service needs. Be reviewing and revising those to be consistent with best practice on a regular basis, but we'll be looking at them more immediately in fall of 2023, trying to make the program as inclusive as possible. The CCFAP application will be provided in electronic and paper forms in plain language and comply with Office of Racial Equity Language Access Report by July of 24. There'll also be an online application as part of the CDDIS system in July of 24. Lastly, CDD will consult with the Office of Racial Equity on public-facing materials and trainings for CCFAP. I'll hand it over to Dawn Rouse.
Thanks, Emily. So I'm going to talk a bit about the readiness payments, and the readiness payments were set-asides by the legislature to support programs in order to be ready for the additional individuals who would be accessing childcare CCFAP. So with a higher eligibility rate for payments and family income, we anticipate more children and families utilizing the program. So we have a $20 million appropriation for readiness payments, and those are for programs accepting CCFAP. These will be non-competitive. By that, I mean you will fill out an application, we will process that application, comparing it against the data in BFIS, and then we will work to get those payments out to you as quickly as possible. Those payments are going to be calculated with a base rate and then potential add-ons. If you experience the ARPA stabilization payments, they will run similarly to that with priorities set such as infant toddler care, expansion, workforce stabilization, and bonuses. We do have a survey that is being released today, I think right after this webinar, and it will close on July 28th to elicit your input about what sorts of things you think belong in that formula. And, you know, what we may have forgotten or what you don't think is important. So all of those questions will be asked. In addition, we are asking you how you would like to receive these payments. Would you like them monthly? Would you like them quarterly? Would you like them as one lump sum? Because that will be another factor that we will build into the formula. We anticipate late summer for the applications to roll out, and then early fall for the payments to start rolling out. We will have 9 months of payments until June 30th, 2024. We also have a $10 million quality and capacity incentive payments that will start rolling out July 1. So Readiness will end June 30th. The 10 million quality and capacity will roll out July 1. And we'll begin designing this with additional surveys from stakeholders in very early 2024, January-ish 2024. And we envision this as financial incentives for the STARS program in order to support the changes and the ongoing attainment of quality in your programs. And now I think I'm going to kick it to Donna.
Hi, I'm Donna LaPiccolo. I'm a licensing supervisor, and I'm going to talk about how parts of Act 76 will be incorporated into what licensing oversees in CDD. So the tuition cap, the regulation of this part of Act 76 will be included in the new regulations when they come out. Until that time, you have a grace period, so we will not be regulating to it. And the regulations and guidance will be clear on how we will assess compliance at the time that they come out. Before any regulations are passed, they are available for review and public comment. So during this grace period, what we're recommending is that now and until the new regulations are approved, you should maintain documentation about any rates and fee changes, include your rationale, communications you put out. When the proposed rules, new regulations they are always put out for public comment. So when those come out, review them and then participate in public comment opportunities. The next part of the Act 76 is around director, a change in the director requirement. And this only applies to center-based and after-school programs, not to family homes. So in the law, they changed the requirement and to actually kind of align with what is being proposed in the new rules. And that is that instead of the current rule reads, the director needs to be present 60% of the program's hours. It's now 40% of the time that children are in care. And many of you may have noticed, or hopefully all of you noticed, that a CDD memorandum came out yesterday that talked about how we've put out that memorandum as a blanket variance. So nobody needs to request a variance or do anything. It's already in place. So, we are now regulating to that rule. So to the 40% of the time that children are in care, that is what licensors will regulate to. And that started July 1st. So the next part of Act 76 is that you have to provide an ownership disclosure. And this, again, is actually something that CD already requests to some degree when you put in a license application and then on reapplication. So we are reviewing the law and we will update our existing forms to include any additional information needed, and that will be provided to you if you're an existing program on your reapplication, or if you're currently doing an application, that will be provided to you. So again, we'll update those forms and then you'll just fill them out and you'll meet that requirement. And then the kind of last part that I'm going to talk about is the tuition rate that needs to be publicly available. So, we currently have in all types of care, there is a rule that talks to providing fees and payment policies to families. And so this is really just sort of expanding that it needs to be available to all of the public. So this requirement will be in our new regulations when they come out. And so right now you're in a grace period until that happens. And so what we're recommending that you do is start making a plan on how you're going to put that in place. And that's something that once you make a plan, or you may already have in place. You may already be doing this. So for those of you that have websites, if you already have that up on your website, you've met the requirement. Other ways that people can meet it is to have information available for distribution when it's requested, and providing it to our community partners. So there are many ways that you can meet that, and talking to licensor on duty and/or your licensor as a resource is going to be helpful if you don't have any ideas right now on how to meet that requirement. So I'm going to now turn it over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Donna. And I'm Chris Case. I'm the Director of Policy and Planning for CDD, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about how we're going to be monitoring progress against the implementation of 76, and also some resources that the legislature provided to help help with the administration of the act. So CDD and Building Bright Futures are going to be monitoring the implementation of 76, and that's going to include defining milestones and tracking progress, and also identifying opportunities for community and partner engagement. So these are conversations that have already started. They're going to continue on through July and the summer, and I'm sure beyond. And then as we identify opportunities for public input and engagement, we'll push those out through the communication channels that we have here. The Act also created 11 new positions within DCF to support the implementation of the law. And so 3 of those positions are within our grants and contracting unit within DCF, and they're going to help us with invoice processing and grant and contract development. And then we have 8 positions that are going to be housed within our child development division. And so those are going to be supporting a combination of licensing work and program work and work implementing the child care financial assistance program. We also we're anticipating that we're going to be able to start posting those positions in hopefully the next month or 2. We're currently in the process of getting them approved to post. But as we post, we'll relay those postings out through the same communication channels that we use to get in touch with folks now, listservs and other channels that we use here. And if you're interested in applying, or if you know somebody that you think would be a good fit, we really encourage you to apply or to share these postings. This is a lot of postings going to be happening at once, and so I think we're anticipating that we're really going to have a need for a number of people. So anything you could do to help would be appreciated. There's also a new payroll tax that was a part of this act that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of. This is something that's going to be applied to businesses statewide. It's applied in order to sustain some of the kinds of financial changes that you've heard about already from the other folks on this call. The taxes are going to be collected beginning July 1st of 24. This isn't something that CDD is implementing specifically, but as pieces come up connected to the tax, they also connect to the work that we're doing here. We'll relay that information out. Otherwise, we really encourage you to go to the Department of Tax's website, and they're going to be posting, if they haven't already, information on how they're going to be implementing this part of the law. And Act 76 also it extends the window for the Student Loan Repayment Assistance Program. This is a program that was recently expanded in March to include more degrees, and then the Act 76 expanded the amount of time that the program would be active. And so it's currently slated to continue past July 1st of 2026. And for more information, we have linked in this presentation the webpage for the Student Loan Repayment Assistance Program. And this presentation, again, is going to be available to you after the call. It'll be posted on our website if you want to find the link that way. And I think at this point, I'm passing it back to Janet.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Hopefully people are finding this helpful, and hopefully you're seeing some of the key themes. I think the themes are aiming to sort of resource early childhood and after school programs more appropriately with the responsibilities that you guys take on in our communities and for our children, and also to make our programs more equitable, to make sure that they can serve different program types, different family types, different communities in a way that's even more equitable. The universal pre-kindergarten elements of the bill are also sort of inspired by those same key themes. And as I dive into those pieces, the first point to make is that this law actually does not make any changes to the universal pre-kindergarten program as it currently exists. So the law asks us to provide a lot of information. It asks us to create a committee that contemplates changes to Act 70 to universal pre-kindergarten, but it doesn't actually make the changes. So what the law does do is it establishes a new pre-kindergarten education implementation plan committee. That committee is co-chaired by AOE and AHS, and so I am one of the co-chairs on behalf of the Agency of Human Services. And then the interim Secretary of Education, Heather Boucher, is the Agency of Education's designee as the co-chair. So we're co-chairing this committee. We had our first meeting last Friday on July 14th. The committee is made up of I think there's about 19 people that are laid out in the legislation that to be included. There are representatives from a center-based private UPK partner, from a family childcare UPK partner, as well as from a public school-based regional UPK coordinator are some of the roles, in addition to a variety of other folks. You can check out the ACT if you're interested, or also you can look at some of our resources which link to where the meeting agendas are. They are public meetings. They are warned. They are warned is the sort of the official term for it, but they are announced in advance. The process, will include public input, stakeholder input, and look at best practices, and look at a lot of different information. The charge is to look at how to implement pre-kindergarten as a full school day, full school year program for 4-year-olds. And it's imagining that this could start for the 26-27 school year. So that is 3 full school years away. It does include mixed delivery. The committee's asked to deliver a report to the legislature by December 1st, 2024. So we have about a year and a half to have these conversations and to deliver a plan to the legislature. Also, the committee's tasks also include sharing some information and reviewing information. The first element is later this summer, the Agency of Education has been asked to submit information to the Joint Fiscal Office around pre-kindergarten right now. The Joint Fiscal Office is sort of the financial arm of the legislature. So they do the financial analysis and planning for the legislature. So they've been, the legislature's directed the state agency to give that information to Joint Fiscal. And then the committee has also, along with AOE, has been asked to provide information to the legislature related to financing, related sort of the pupil weight financing for pre-kindergarten students related versus kindergarten students. This is the sort of like complex school funding finance formula that, only a few people in the state of Vermont understand. But hopefully we can write a report that helps us all understand that a little bit more and make some recommendations around the cost of educating a pre-kindergarten student in the state. And then another deliverable is to provide a model contract for school districts to use when contracting with private providers for pre-kindergarten education. So again, this would be delivered sort of alongside the implementation plan that the legislature has requested. So that was the universal pre-kindergarten piece. There'll be lots more conversation to have there. But again, no changes right away to pre-kindergarten in the state of Vermont. The legislature did also ask us for a variety of reports, and some of them will be more interesting to you and some of them may be less interesting to you. But in the next year, we have, there's a report requested around improvements to the background check process. The Vermont Crime Information Center is actually tasked with doing that report in partnership with the Child Development Division and the Agency of Education. We recognize the background check process is not ideal. Some of that is not within our control because of federal requirements. But we're hopeful that there still are some things that we can do to speed things up and make them more efficient for everybody. The next one is around a report that the Joint Fiscal Office, again, that financial planning arm within the legislature and CDD, a report that we would do related to childcare financial assistance. And essentially what they're asking us to do is to say, how should we adjust both the state rates for the child for CCFAP, as well as the weekly family share over time. You know, it shouldn't necessarily have to require legislation every single time we want to adjust the rates. Like what should be the plan and the process by which we do that? So that will be a joint report due next January. The legislature has also asked us for information around progress or feasibility for an administrative service organization that would support childcare programs. This is sort of some of the shared services work or shared sort of back office supports work that's been explored over the years. So we'll provide an update to the legislature on that. And then we've also been asked for a report related to streamlining and improving the effectiveness of special accommodation grants, right? Those grants that are designed to support the inclusion of children that have additional needs within regulated childcare programs. And hopefully in the last 6 months or so, we've made some changes already, and we're excited to make sure the legislature knows about that. But we also are very interested in what can we do to further enhance and improve that program to better meet the needs of our children. And then there are a couple of additional reports that are into 2025 and 2026. So in 2025, there's an element that asks DCF to provide a recommendation regarding reorganization. Department of Children and Families is a very large, really one of the largest divisions and one of the largest departments in state government. And the legislature is also asking us sort of how could a reorganization support elevating the status of sort of early childhood education, early childhood services within the Agency of Human Services. Agency of Education is being asked to provide a similar report as well, but those are not due until November of 2025, so that is more than 2 years away. And then in 2026, we're also being asked to submit information on current wage levels for early childhood educators. The bill or the law also included some language related to an intent for the legislature to begin to look at how to support increased compensation and a wage structure for early childhood educators specifically. But it's really that language is an intent, and there's no commitment and there's no actual directive to Child Development Division within that language. So the thing that we have been asked to do is to provide that information in 2026. So here, that is our run through of everything that is in the giant act that is Act 76. We know it's a lot. We don't expect you to memorize all of it. We also all have to refer back to the text, refer back to the chart, remind ourselves exactly what did this part say, exactly what did that part say. So we are with you in figuring this out over time. We have created our dedicated Act 76 webpage that is going to have, again, this presentation. It will have this summary and status report. We will create FAQs based on the questions that we're receiving. And I also wanted to highlight that First Children's Finance, again, a nonprofit that recently established an office here in Vermont to provide business-specific technical assistance to childcare programs in the state of Vermont. First Children's Finance has created some Act 76 videos already, and they specifically address some of the changes related to CCFAP reimbursements and the way that some of the different changes within Act 76 sort of interact. And so you can check out the videos for general information and advice and sort of unpacking some of those requirements. They have an example of what does this mean for a licensed center? What could this mean for a family child care program? And then they also are happy to give you individual advice as well for your specific program and talk through, how you might think about this for your specific program as well. And then the child development division team is here for you for for your questions. And so, we do have our general inbox, and if you send us a question, we will make sure it gets to the right person and get you an answer fairly quickly. Use that for FAQs. The licensor on duty line is also a great option for questions that you have about Act 76 and specifically, ideally, the things that are related to the licensing portions. And then First Children's Finance, which I already said. So that is some places to go for more information. We do want to take some time to answer questions right now. We do need to use the chat function to be able to do that. Is it open? Let's see. Okay, great. So the chat function is open for your questions. We will go ahead and sort of look through them and provide answers as we can, and you may even chat in answers as we go. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. So, Dawn, do you want to take the first question?
Sure. Mia, you will apply for readiness payments by a link on our website, and we will notify the field when that link is up and ready. So it will be a pretty straightforward jot form. Everyone likes to ask money questions.
Of course. This is a really big moment. I mean, thinking the readiness payments are going to be a significant amount of, I think there'll be a significant amount of resources. It is close to the amount of money that was available for ARPA stabilization. So between the readiness payments and the CCFAP changes, there's going to be some more resources for your programs for you to think about, how are you going to use those, how are you going to invest those to achieve your goals. I will take the question about the publicly listed ratings go against antitrust laws. And what I can tell, I am not a lawyer, but what I can tell you about that is that lawyers did weigh in on this. And because this is a field that does include a lot of public financing, that the state is allowed to make rules about sharing your tuition rates and about setting rate caps. You could kind of think about it similar to healthcare. There's a lot of rules about, how much people are allowed to charge, what they have to make public. And so it is legal, what is being asked. Emily, do you want to do the question related to the sort of the provider rate agreement and then what the change will be in January?
Sure. So the question, we still are required to sign a contract that's referring, I think, to the provider rate agreement for CCFAP that states we'll charge the same for private paying parents. Do we still have to charge the increased rates to all? So until January 1st, 2024, you should be charging the same rate for private paying families as families receiving CCFAP. As always, you're more than welcome to offer scholarships or discounts to private paying families. But until January 1st, 2024, you should be charging the same rate for all families. And then in January 1st, 2024, there will just be the CCFAP rate. So there will no longer be that comparison between what your rate is, the CCFAP rate. You'll just receive the CCFAP rate for eligible families.
Great, thanks, Emily. I wanted to also flag that the videos that the First Children's Finance have done address this very specifically. So that's another helpful resource, another plug there.
I can take the next question too. It's about
Sure.
scholarship piece for families who do not qualify for CCFAP, and if there are requirements regarding this or guidance. And we do not have any scholarship requirements or guidance. That's not anything that CDD has available. That's completely at your program's discretion.
I see a couple of UPK related questions under that, and I can take those. So I apologize that I used mixed delivery without defining it. Basically, it means that that public education or pre-kindergarten education can be offered in public schools, could be offered in community programs, either private center-based programs or nonprofit center-based programs, or at family child care homes. And so that's when when people, including me apparently, talk about the mixed delivery system, we mean having it having pre-kindergarten offered in a variety of settings. And so while the legislature is looking at having I think the proposal they're requesting is, related to having a stronger role for public schools within pre-kindergarten in terms of making sure that every child can have access to a full day or a full school day, full school year slot for 4-year-olds. That could be done in partnership with programs that are not run directly by the school. So that's what we mean by the mixed delivery system. And then right below that, Becca had a great question around the summer childcare needs for preschool children. And this is absolutely an issue that the pre-kindergarten committee will need to take up. It sort of is one of the questions we're asked to think about. And I know it's something that's on a lot of people's minds. Vermont After School does have a seat on the committee. And there are a lot of people wondering exactly about the question that you have and what that means. Donna, there's a question related to the 40% requirement, but it's related from someone who also runs a family child care home. If you wanted to speak to that one.
I did answer it in the chat,
Oh, you
but
did
I'll
down
also
below.
say,
Okay.
so I specifically said center-based and after school because that's the change to this law. In the act, they did ask us to consider doing something similar with family child care homes, but there's actually a separate statute that doesn't allow for someone to hold both licenses. And until that gets resolved in the law, we can't do anything within our regulations. So that's something that will have to be looked at separately. So right now it does only apply to center-based and after school. But it was put in place to potentially allow a director to be the director on multiple sites because you can be there less than 50% of the time. So that is something that you could look at doing, just not a family care home at this time. And the rates available to the general public or just to current and prospective families, it is to the general public. That's actually the change. Currently, you do have to provide your rates to current families and prospective families, but it's the general public that you do have to provide your rates to now, or when it's put into our regulations.
Mm-hmm. I think it seems like we've answered the questions in the chat. Does that sound right to other folks who are reviewing the chat? I see a question at the end from Melanie around water usage and public building status, and I think that's a question for Donna, probably, potentially. But it might be very specific, and if it's specific to a very localized situation, that's also a question that we're happy to answer offline.
Yeah,
Okay.
The laws around
Great.
water usage and public building use is completely separate from our regulations. So I would encourage Melanie to reach out separately about that.
Yeah. Yes. So part of what we have to sort through too are some of the other state and federal laws related that are related to environmental environmental concerns or health concerns that also apply to us, and that's not necessarily ours or were acted on in this act. Okay. And then I see a question that asked about how to access these tape sessions. We will get them onto our, we will get it onto our website, and then by the end of the week, certainly. And then we will also, like I said, use some of these questions to develop an FAQs document that we'll make sure are shared with you. Okay. I think.
Yeah, I see, Melanie, that you're saying it's not specific, it's laws around the state. Well, I guess what I'm saying is that those laws are not included in this act. So those are separate laws under water systems and under the Agency of Natural Resources and the Department for Environmental Conservation. And so that they're not affected by this. So that would be a separate ask and separate changes to laws that are under their jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm. And we are aware that it can be hard to navigate, and that is helping programs sort of navigate that is some of the supports that the licensing team does offer when people are trying to start programs, but we can't necessarily change those laws or change the requirements. So, okay. Are there any, I think, I'm seeing some thank yous, and you guys are very welcome. We are in this together to figure this out and to make some of these changes that we hope can be really beneficial. And so I do see one more quick question, and then I think seems like we can wrap it up. The question at the end was around childcare rates being incorporated and disclosed in the Bright Futures listing. And I think we are, on our side, we are very open to including it in as we expand what's included within the Child Development Division's information system, the system using for CCFAP. We imagine the plan is to get the stuff that's in the Bright Future system into CDDIS, at which point we think we could build in something related to childcare rates there. And then, yes, that would solve that problem, but that's probably, that is not imminent. So we do need folks to think about how they're going to come into compliance with that requirement without a CDD-led website resource. And we're going to put these things into the regulations and into the guidance manuals that you have for licensing. So you'll have more information as we get there. So. Okay. Well, we really appreciate the work that you do every day, and that you took the time out of your evening to come listen. And again, please be in touch with us if you have questions, and we will make sure to get the resources and information out to you. So have a wonderful evening.